Professor McCormick, Mrs. McCormick, Dr. Naughton, Mrs. Naughton, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. On behalf of the Ulster Business School, it is a very great pleasure for me as Dean of the school to welcome you to the now established and very special event in our calendar, the FPM Annual Leadership Talk. We are delighted this morning to welcome our guest speaker, the highly distinguished entrepreneur and honorary graduate of the University of Ulster, Dr. Martin Naughton, who is going to share with us some of his thoughts on leadership, management and business. With over 6,000 students, as one of the largest, dynamic, innovative and entrepreneurial business schools in Britain and Ireland, the Ulster Business School has a very strong regional presence, set within a global context and with global reach. With relevance being central to our core teaching and learning, research and knowledge transfer activities, underpinning all of our work is a deep-seated commitment to making a positive contribution to regional economic growth and development. This is evident in a wide range of initiatives within the school, but most recently perhaps through the establishment of the Centre for SME Development and the Northern Ireland Centre for Economic Policy, both of which are dedicated to providing a valued and valuable service to the community in Northern Ireland. The ethos of service that permeates the work of the Ulster Business School is also reflected in the unique cadre of individuals who are associated with us as visiting professors, one of whom is Fergal McCormick. We are privileged to work with such an innovative, dynamic and entrepreneurial person, and we are delighted that Professor McCormick and his team at FPM have chosen to work with the Ulster Business School in organising this very special event. Both FPM and the Ulster Business School have close associations with the Management and Leadership Network as its partners, and we're very pleased that today's event is one of a series included within the MLN Annual Management Month initiative. Leading in the provision of professional education for professional life, at the Ulster Business School we place much emphasis upon equipping our graduates with knowledge and skills that make them highly employable. In a very real sense, we seek to contribute positively to the growing pool of business, management and leadership talent that aims to make this region a most attractive place for people and organisations to live, locate, work and invest. It is highly appropriate and timely, therefore, that we have the opportunity this morning to hear the views of someone who has demonstrated time and time again expert management, leadership skill and business acumen. Dr. Naughton, you're very welcome to the University and the Ulster Business School for this FPM Annual Leadership Talk. We look forward to hearing your conversation with Gerry Kelly, who is of course one of Northern Ireland's best known broadcasters. I have no doubt that we are in for a very lively, entertaining and stimulating discussion, and I hope very much that you will all enjoy the event and the time that you spend with us here at the University today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ree. Good morning, everyone. The format of this morning is relatively simple. I'll chat to Martin for half an hour, 40 minutes or so, and then hopefully we'll open it up to a question and answer session after that. So without further ado, would you please welcome our very special guest today, Dr. Martin Naughton. Right, we'll try and not be too intrusive today. Can I take you back? Because as you say, you've been dubbed on many occasions as the sort of the quiet man of the business world. Can we take you back to those early days, your family upbringing in Dundalk? Tell me a little bit about what life was like there and about family and so on.
Well, growing up in Dundalk, Ireland wasn't a different country then. It was a different planet. My father was a guard, a policeman. My mother, who was from the west of Ireland, had spent many years living in America. And as pretty typical, I was one of 7. And the ethos of the family was self-reliance. Both my parents, apart from, did everything. My father cut our hair, mended our shoes, kept a garden, worked on the bog. And I think that self-sufficiency, be dependent on yourself, came through. And education was the key. Education was the escape route for all of us.
And what were the hopes and dreams of the young Martin Naughton? Had you a plan in mind?
No, I mean, Dundalk is a northern town, and we would really look to Newry, Belfast, more than Drogheda and Dublin. Mostly in those days, when I started in primary school just after the war, there was 100 kids went into school. I think there was about 12 of us eventually did leaving cert, and none of us went to university. So that was the Ireland of then. Turn that on its head now to a family growing up. They'd all aspire to go to university, a family like ours. All my children went to university, went to postgraduate studies, and that was accepted. And part of it, all my grandchildren, please God, will go to university and will go on to postgraduate studies somewhere else.
So how did you escape Dundalk?
Well, what was open to us was the public service, the army. Industry wasn't on the agenda, wasn't on the horizon. So I went off to Southampton in England, and I took up a 5-year student apprenticeship course there.
What age were you when you left?
16.
Which was very young.
It was young. I was the youngest in the class. In fact, for many years I was the youngest doing everything.
Change of days, Mark.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I remember one meeting in Dublin when we were sitting around and we were going through a contract, and one young man said, can I bring you back to paragraph 4? I'm not happy with that. And we went back, and I said, that's a very clever remark for a young man to make. And then we were around the room, and I suddenly realised that I was the oldest in the room.
So you were saying about you went to Southampton?
Yeah, I took up aeronautical engineering, and then halfway through I changed to mechanical and production engineering.
So after that, you come back to Ireland to look for work?
That was always the plan. I always said that I would come back to Ireland, and there's a story about that which I won't go into. But I came back to Shannon Airport when Ireland was opening up then to foreign investment, and I joined an American company there.
So let me rush you forward to 1973. You had a few jobs before 1973. Where were you working in 73 and what happened?
Yeah, I come back when I was in Shannon. I was doing industrial engineering, and I was applied for a job in what was GEC in Dunleer, County Louth, and they were making electrical appliances, and they made every kind of electrical appliance, and they were operating behind tariff barriers and behind quotas, so it was really a false industry. With the coming in 1973 of free trade, this type of industry really had no future. And I decided then that we would look about setting up our own business. The company which I was with, which belonged to GEC in England, made appliances for the Irish market and made some appliances for export, but under everybody else's brand name. And that company was helped by the government agency Ford Shorter. I put forward a plan which I thought was the future of the company, which meant cutting out a lot of the products, focusing on a small number of products which could be global, which had potential to be exported. But that plan was turned down, and the company decided they were going to expand out of trouble and just keep everything as it was, but just grow out of trouble. It's like governments trying to do, let's get growth, and that would solve all the problems. So I sort of said, well, if this plan is right and I believe in it, then I should go and do it. So we set about creating our own company. Newry was a natural place for us to go. And this time 40 years ago, 1973, I was busy negotiating with the Department of Commerce to set up our own business in Gerry. Our business plan was that we would do 400,000 the first year and lose money. These figures are ingrained in my heart. Year 2 we would do 600,000 and we would break even. And in the final year, year 3, we would do 1 million and we would make some profit. We would employ 100 people and we would never, 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 under any circumstances, grow beyond that.
Great decision.
Yeah. Great business plan. As you see, it totally failed. But the first year, we broke our 400,000 and we made profit. The second year, we did more than 600,000 and we made profit. And the final year, we broke the 1 million and we made profit. Now, you've got to think about 40 years ago. I mean, the average home in Northern Ireland was about £9,000. So it just puts into context what 1 million then. Like 1 million was real money then.
But you also have to put in context to 1973.
Yeah.
It was the height of the troubles here.
It was.
You were in Gerry, which
Yeah.
I think at the time was the second highest black spot in the whole of Europe for employment or unemployment.
Yeah, after Strabane.
After Strabane. Why do you think you could succeed there?
I think naivety, Gerry, you know. I think, you know, I was in my early 30s. I was newly married. We had 2 babies. And it's very nice talking over pints or cups of coffee about starting your own business. It's a totally different ballgame, giving up the job and the pension and going into the cold world.
Where did money come from for that?
Well, first of all, I had got a small group of 5 investors together who were all working in the business. We borrowed money from the bank and we got grants and support from the Northern Ireland government, the Department of Commerce.
So that was Glen Electric.
That was Glen Electric.
Was on. And 4 years later, 1977, after the 3 years, 3 very successful years,
Yeah.
Glen Electric, you started to make your first acquisition. You went after a company that was 8 times, if not 10 times, the size of Glen Electric.
Yep.
Why did you think then, because Diplex was the company we're talking about, it was in financial trouble.
Yeah.
Why did you think you should succeed? Well, first of all, did you want to buy it? Did you set out to get it?
No, I mean, Diplex was the brand leader in our business, electric heating. Very fine business. And it went into receivership. In 1973, we had a recession, a real recession. And we had a switch it off campaign, turning off electricity. There was the oil crisis. And it was, I mean, if you had to pick a time to start a business in 1973, you know, it was an Irish joke. And then we got a second recession of the oil crisis in 78, and Diplex was caught in this. They were never insolvent, but the banks lost confidence in them, in that they kept bringing forward new projections, you know, and the bank called in a receiver. Arthur Anderson in Dublin and Naughton Quinn, they were our financial advisors, and I asked Naughton would he come over to Diplex with me. It was a bit of industrial espionage in that we had no intention of buying it. But I said, Naughton, you know, Arthur Anderson, you give me the cloak of respectability and we want to get as much information as we can. So we wrote off and asked, could we have all the list of the customers, the selling prices, all the costings, and the management said, look, these are a bunch of barrow boys. We can't give them any of this stuff. But the receiver said, you know, these are legitimate buyers. So we got all the information. And we went over and we spent a day, and suddenly I saw the opportunities of putting a traditional company like Diplex together with a new, vibrant young company. So it just, to me, made total sense. Naughton tried very hard to talk me out of it. And I said, Naughton, look, I can't put this on a balance sheet for you, but all my gut feeling, my instinct says this will really work. I can do this. And after a full day of trying to talk me out of it, Naughton said, okay, let's try and raise the money. And in fact, I got nobody to agree with me. That it was a good idea, we should do it. I mean, Naughton would say to me, look, you're in business now 3 years, the company's going well, you know, you'll get there on your own eventually. This has the potential to destroy you, you know, you'd be ruined. And in Ireland, of that period, if you go bust, you never come back. You know, you're finished. Reputation's gone. It's all over.
Are you that stubborn, or are you that?
No, it's neither. I'm a bit determined if I believe in what I'm doing, and you don't walk away from a deal. There's no deal breaker. So we set about the negotiations on it, and it was agreed. Diplex was in receivership for 6 months, and we finally agreed with the receiver we'd buy it. And the day before I was to go to London, to do the deal, the receiver rang me and said, "Martin, I hate to tell you this, but there's another offer on the table." And he said, "Look, it's not inappropriate if I should meet you and talk to you about it." So I met him in London, a guy called David Oldry, and he did all the receiverships for the Midland Bank. And he said, "Martin, the competitor is a public company, and you're not going to beat them." But he said, "Look, your offer and their offer are not the same." He said, "But their basket of lemons and apples are much nicer than your basket of oranges and pears. However," he said, "if you take out some of your oranges and I swap them with their lemons, you'd have a better deal than they have." I said, "Yeah, let's do that." He said, "Sorry, you want to make me another offer?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "What offer?" I said, "Exactly what you've told me." He said, "No, no." He got out his notebook. He said, "Okay, we have an offer on the table." So he wrote it all down. He said, "That's fine." He said, "Your basket is now more attractive to me." He said, "However, Martin, I'm going to go back to them and tell them that I have a better offer. But," he said, "if they decide they're going to bid, you're gone." You know? I remember staying in the hotel in London, and I spent the whole night trying to raise more money, which I managed to do, like a fair bit more money. But the receiver said, "We'll meet in McKenna and Company in Trafalgar Square tomorrow morning, and either I'll apologise to everybody for bringing you to the meeting, or else we're going to be there all day." I had breakfast in the hotel. It was like eating straw. And then we arrived, and all the receivers and all his team came in with their briefcases. I said, "David, how long are we going to be here?" He said, "We're here all day." So afterwards, we eventually signed the deal, and I said, "You know, what happened? Who were the other people?" He said, "I can now tell you." He said, "It's Valor, public company." And I went to Michael Montague and I told him we had a better deal, and he said, "Sorry, you have not a better deal. I know this industry, I know all the players. You are bluffing, sir." He said, "Dimplex will fall like a ripe apple into my hand." And he said, "You know," and Michael rang me afterwards, and he was trying to buy Diplex off me. And we meet every year, and we have the same conversation. And the ironic part of it is that last year we bought Valor. That was never a plan, Gerry.
By the end of the 70s, then, just 7 years after those humble beginnings that you talked about, the group had an annual revenue of €30 million. You had a workforce of 900. It would appear that the acquisition of Diplex was key to your very future.
Yeah, Diplex changed everything. And Diplex taught me for the first time the power of a brand. And Diplex opened doors for us we could have been rapping on forever. We set out to start up an ethical company that made quality products, well-designed, good products that we could stand over, and were innovative. But Diplex, the brand, now we would focus in Glen on price points. So we were always living on $9.99 and $14.99 and $19.99 and $24.99. Diplex would have a product which they would put features into, and they'd say to me, "This is a £40 product," which used to knock me around. But with Diplex, I mean, in getting Diplex, we were helped by the Finance Corporation of Northern Ireland. which was set up to invest in companies and help them and be like a in commercial bank. And I had to give 20% of the company away. But we had the respectability of the government being an investor with us, which was actually very helpful in the first years. But my intention was to buy back the shares as soon as I could. In the first year of Diplex, we moved a lot of the products to Gerry. We redesigned the whole range. We reinvented Diplex. And we earned the purchase price of the first year, and we bought back our shares in the first year. So, you know, it was the transformative business.
Talk us through the 80s and your expansion there throughout the 80s.
Well, I became a junkie on brand names then, in that the power of the brand began to appeal to me. And then recessions have always been a good time for us. And we had a time of recessions in the 80s and the reorganizing of industry. And we became quite expert at acquiring brands and turning them around. So some very fine...
Were all these brands in trouble at the time?
Yeah, what happened, they weren't necessarily in trouble, but what had happened, a lot of these very fine brands, and very fine British brands. I mean, we have a basket of them now. Like Murphy Richards, like Belling, like Roberts Radio, like a whole string of them. And there were companies where they were living off their reputation, and they were living on their fat. They weren't investing in new products. A new product would be a new coat of paint or a new colour or nothing was done. They were just freshened up a little bit. So there was no investment. They were milking them dry. So we had a great run in the 80s of acquiring a lot of these businesses. And we were quite strong in the UK. And then we moved, you know, step by step, European-wise. The next big breakthrough came when I got a call one day from a merchant bank in London that said, "Martin, we have a client that wants to buy Diplex." And I said, "This was not for sale." And he said, come, like everything has a price. You know? And I said, "Yeah, but I'm really not interested in selling it." And but like someone asked me to sell one of your children, you know. And it was, so I said to the guy, "Look, tell me, out of curiosity, is this a European or an American company?" So he said, "It's a European company." And I said, "Just a matter of interest, is it French or German?" He said, "Well, it's German." I said, "It has to be Siemens." He said, "I didn't say that." So I said, "Look, if it is Siemens, I wouldn't mind talking to them and having a conversation with Siemens." So we set up a meeting with Siemens. And Siemens had decided corporate-wise that if they weren't one or two in every category worldwide, they'd get out of it. And in electric heating, they weren't one or two. And they had factories in Germany, Canada, and in Norway. And they were a big player. And we met in Belgium, and this young executive brought us through the global electric heating business, country by country. And he said, "Look, if we can acquire Diplex and we can acquire Muller in France, then we are the global leader." So this was the great plan. So we set up a sort of a little ad hoc committee between the two groups to examine what that would mean. And eventually I met this guy, Walter Steinbar, in Cologne in Germany for dinner. And he says, "Martin, you're not going to sell Diplex to me, are you?" I said, "No, Walter, I'm not." He said, "If you won't sell Diplex to me, then it makes sense for you to buy Siemens." See, I nearly fell off the chair. I said, "Walter, yeah, it's a good idea." So then we had a set about looking at the potential of that. And again, we acquired Siemens heating business. I remember a reporter from Frankfurt said to me in German, he said, "This is wrong. You haven't bought Siemens, Siemens has bought you." And I said, "No, we bought Siemens heating business." And he said, "But Ireland is for it's a green country. It's for agriculture, for tourism. It's not for manufacturing appliances. But we set about and we bought Siemens in Germany and Canada, and then later we bought Siemens in Norway. And that we got the use of the Siemens name for 15 years. And we could brand any heater we wanted with Siemens. And worldwide, it was a fantastic asset. What also shocked me was, even in Israel, you would get a 10% premium for having Siemens, a German brand, on a product rather than any other brand.
By the end of the 80s,
Yeah.
the group turnover now had come to 300 million, and the workforce was 3,000. I'm not going to go through every year up until now, but the 90s and the noughties, huge expansion. You went into China in 2003, was it?
Yeah.
Why China?
Well, when we started in Gerry, Ireland was the China of Europe. We were a cheap manufacturing base. And China didn't exist. And then China began to appear. And opening price point products became much, much more difficult to so it suddenly began to realize that China is there, and that China is a great threat, and it's a great opportunity. So we set up, first of all, putting offices into China, and then we started manufacturing in the north of China. And we love areas that are cold, and we're creatures of misery.
The problem about going into China was there may have been a perception or a fear that you were using the sort of cheap production costs out there, and that jobs here could suffer as a consequence.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy answer, and a lot of people have gone offshore. Americans moved, and we have manufacturing in America. We bought a big American company called Hamilton Beach. But Americans moved from the north, from the Rust Belt down to the Sun Belt, down to Carolina and Mississippi, and then they moved again to Mexico, always chasing cheap labor. Now they're in China, and next they'll be Vietnam, and so they're always somewhere cheaper. We are doing almost €2 billion, and 80% of our production is in the Western world. But opening price point products, we have to go to places where they can be made competitive. But by constantly designing new products by patents, we are able to manufacture in the Western world and stay competitive.
Is there any spin-off? Is it coming the other way from China to Ireland?
First of all, China provides us with the source of cheap components, which we have to have, and that allows us to manufacture here by using Chinese components. If you don't exist, so that's realistically. But as China is becoming affluent, strangely, they don't want to buy Chinese products. They have ambitions to have a lifestyle. They want American brands, they want European brands, and there's a huge potential in China for us to sell our products in China, which we are doing.
Are you involved in there's a new Euro-Chinese hub about to be created in Athlone? Are you part of it?
That's a bit like the Yeti,
Oh, is it?
A lot of people are talking about it, but nobody has seen it.
Nothing's happening. How do you run, to paraphrase your own words, you can't run a £2 million company the way you run a £2 billion company. How do you run your company today? What is the structure?
Yeah, well, I would feel that, a person who can't delegate is a nuisance. You can't run, a £100 million business the way you run a £1 billion business. And you can't run a £1 billion business the way you run a £100 billion business. So you have to adapt. It was a big wrench for me to leave Newry. The happiest days of my life were running Glen Electric, your own company, you're in charge of everything. And to delegate, leave your office, give it to somebody else, and people bring up and say, can I speak to the boss? I said, the boss is in Europe, you know. And there's a big difference between being an owner and being the boss. And I found again that in companies belong to a lot more people than the owners. And I get humble when I see our teams of people around the world working hard, driving their businesses, having a passion about it. And if you take our group, which is Diplex, the people who work in Roberts Radio don't say I work for Diplex, they work for Roberts Radio, they fight for their company, Murphy Richards guys, the Belling guys. So as far as they're concerned, it's their business, it's their company. So we have, we believe, first of all, Diplex, we call ourselves an international company. We're not a multinational. So we're not an Irish company, a British company, an American company, a German company. We're an international company. And I've always believed that the best people to run any of our companies are the people who live and operate in those companies. So the best people who run our German business are Germans. And certainly the best people who run our French business are French people. Our Japanese business is run by Japanese. So we don't send executives from here out to anywhere. And it's not the language, it's understanding the culture, how business is done in each country. It's the friends you make at school, in the golf club, the tennis club. So we have companies all around the world with locals running them for us. And we have a pretty precise reporting manual. And we hold 11 board meetings a year, and they all follow exactly the same format. So each of the companies, it's like a fleet of boats. So rather than being a big super tanker, which is hard to maneuver, we have a whole series of crafts, all different sizes, but all with a captain and a full crew who run their boats. Now any one of these boats could get into trouble, and the others can go to its rescue, or it could sink without affecting the fleet. Now, I think it's vitally important, and our 11 board meetings are in everybody's diary, at the exact time and date when it's going to be on. I think this monthly reporting is hugely, hugely important. When nothing changes our board meetings. We call them board meetings, being a bit swanky. They're really management meetings. We have no external directors. Everybody is an executive director. And everyone reports exactly the same way. And we spend 2 full days a month. We have 10 board meetings per day. So we will start, mostly video conferencing now allows us to do this. It used to be almost a week and very disruptive when people travel. So the last Friday of each month, we kind of have a follow the sun series. We start at 7 in the morning and we go to Japan, and we'll ask the Japanese guys, hi guys, what's going on in Japan? What's the story? And we'll hear from them how they see Japan, the economy, what's happening. And then they go through exactly the same format of chief executive's report, finance director's report, technical director's report, etc. We get the numbers in exactly the same way. So it's quite efficient, quite well done, and nothing slips through. And then we go to China, same story, tell us about China. And we go to Norway, Benelux, Germany, France, one of the UK companies, Ireland. And then we go in the afternoon across the Atlantic, but it's their morning, our afternoon. And we do Canada, and then finish up in the United States. And we get a very clear impression of what's going on in the world, just talking to our guys. So we have a fairly good feel of what's going on.
How have you cushioned yourself over the past 7, 8 years with the whole global recession thing? How has it impacted on you?
We because of this feel we have when we're at the cold face, we felt the storm clouds in 2007, and we decided in 2007 to cancel Christmas. No Christmas parties, no celebration. And perfect storm was coming as far as we could see it. And we took away the checkbooks, took away the order books. If you have an order book, it's more important than a checkbook, because once you write the order, you have to follow up with a check. We battened down the hatches very carefully for the storm. And it's the first time that I've seen, we've been through recession several times, several recessions. We started in a recession, but it was the first time that I saw a global recession. We would often have a situation where the UK would be down, but Germany would be up, America would be in trouble, but Japan would be good. And we'd get counterbalancing, pluses and minuses, and we'd make our numbers, but never the way we had thought at the beginning of the year. This recession, which started with Lehman's and America, it was almost like someone turning off a light switch. Everywhere in the world, boom, we had the same feeling. People were afraid to spend money. House prices, nobody was buying a house, nobody was buying an automobile, and it was a truly global situation. But you know, the guy who runs our French business said to me, "We don't do recessions." But recessions have been always beneficial to us, and we set up our business, and first of all, we would have in the group very strong foundations, deep foundations, and for many, many years, we would have planned our affairs that we could go through a recession, and when that's over and it's gone, we're hit by another one. So we are structured to go through a depression. We would have no borrowings. We haven't had borrowings for 15 years. So we would have large cash reserves, and there's nothing like cash in the bank in the time of trouble, and that applies to all of us. You know, that cash is king.
You're a private company, always have been.
Yeah.
Why is that so important to you?
I don't think I would enjoy running a public company. We are a private situation, but there's no such thing as never. You know, if it was ever necessary, then all options are on the table.
What would make it necessary?
If you wanted to make a tremendous acquisition, and you had to go public to do it, then it might make sense. But I wouldn't see it anywhere in the future. But I can't do anything beyond the group. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no need to do it. I mean, we're generating profits, we're generating cash flow. We can do whatever we want to do without going public.
What? Can we talk about yesterday's news from down south?
Yeah.
Liquidating IBRC. Andy Kenny is saying that this is the first step on the road to financial recovery for the country. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's great news, and it's the news we've been hoping for. I think it's very positive. It's not the end of the road. I think it's turning the corner. But this has been a global problem. I mean, it's not just here. There's uncertainty and financial trouble in a lot of places. And in the Republic of Ireland, we had a banking crisis and we had a construction building crisis. But we're lucky that we've got a very sound economy, balance of trade surplus. So the real economy is doing very well. And very lucky we've got all the new industries all there. And we're an export-led economy. And they're all doing buoyantly. So,
Are you sound optimistic for the future?
yeah, can I tell you as well that all our guys now in January, all our guys everywhere, are more positive now than I've heard them in 4 or 5 years. So globally, there's a better, brighter feeling. You know, so just the vibes coming through. Now I don't go on to external boards either. You know, we focus on our own business. But I am on the advisory board of Citigroup, private bank for Europe and the Middle East. And Jane Fraser is the chief executive of Citigroup Private Bank Worldwide. She's a Scottish girl, a very bright girl. And we had a board meeting just before Christmas, and she said, "Mark, we are much more positive than we were the last time we met you." She said, "The American fiscal cliff won't happen, that'll all be sorted out. It'll be a last minute put together, but it'll happen." And she says, we see a global recovery starting in the second half of 2013, American-led. And she said the whole dynamics are changing because of America becoming independent on energy, and America then becoming a net exporter of energy. And American industry will be driven by cheap energy. And a lot of American industry that went offshore will come back to America because of the availability of guaranteed cheap energy.
And that's what you're moving into now, too, of course, isn't it? Yes, you have a new product coming out called quantum heating system, which is a new form of storage heating system for homes. And you're going to manufacture it in Portadown?
Yeah. Well, it's designed and developed in Portadown. I mean, the whole future for us is in renewable, sustainable products. This is where the big growth is going to happen. Quantum, which is developed in Portadown, will be manufactured there, is a known product, storage heating, which has been upgraded and updated. It's a storage heater with a computer built into it, so it's all electronic. And it can take energy whenever the generators have it available. And it's like a big storage of it over, say, a 4-day period. It's a groundbreaking, ball-changing product. We are talking to all the utilities all over Europe. We're talking overseas. Very positive. We have a trial going in the Shetland Islands, in Dublin. We will be doing one here in the spring in Northern Ireland, and in New Brunswick in Canada through this winter when we're running them. Very, very hopeful of it.
What does it mean for Portadown?
Well, look, just take storage heaters. In UK alone, there's 6 million storage heaters. This product would save you about 25% energy, and it will use green energy. So, for fuel poverty, for a lot of things. But in the UK, there are 6 million storage heaters. If we changed 100,000 a year for 20 years, that would provide 3,000 jobs. And that would be 1,000 in manufacturing, 1,000 in marketing, distribution, and 1,000 in installing, and in after-sales service of them. And that's a small number. So the potential here is very large, and we are quite excited about it.
How far down the line are you?
Oh, we're in production, and we can sell all we can make at the moment. And it'll be first year from nowhere an £8 million business, and that's first year. So potential here is very large. Similarly, in Gerry, we started to make heat pumps there. We are making a lot of heat pumps in Germany. We have new heat pumps coming along, which are going into Gerry, and we have very hopeful of the potential there as well.
You have a great love for Gerry.
Well, we love all our children equally, but the first child, some way, is a little bit important. And even you discovered Gerry, the first grandchild is a little bit important as well.
I just discovered that. After the Good Friday Agreement, you were asked to chair the Intertrade Trade Ireland. Why was that important? Because you were such a global figure at that stage. Why was it important for you to do something as local as that, if I could put it that way?
Oh, well, like we're all local boys, and this is why it's important that we have homegrown companies. Because I think, you know, if you're from Northern Ireland, from the south of Ireland, you know, it's a hometown game. I was asked again to chair the board of it the first time, and I did 8 years of a 3-year contract. But it was a terrific organisation in that it was people from both sides of the community here in the north, and it was people from the south, an equal number. And we were a group of people when we came together for the first time who were a little bit suspicious of each other. But as we got to know each other, we left our politics at the door, and we were talking business and business only. And these people became great friends and great colleagues, and we were a great team.
Our government's doing enough. Is it is it a success?
It is continuing. It's meeting its requirements.
Our government's doing enough.
Yeah, I think governments have. I mean, I remember Reg MP was the minister at the time, and he said to me, "Martin, it's a bit uphill for us to swallow that the south of Ireland is involved in the economy here. What is the price we're prepared to pay?" And certainly Mary Harney was his counterpart in the south, and both of them worked very, very hard and very committed to making it work. And I'd say both of them should be congratulated for the effort they put in.
You're talking about your people all around the world. What's the image of Northern Ireland, especially in light of the recent flag trouble and so on, and the protests? Does it damage us abroad?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been deeply upset by the image. I mean, it's not the image of, and none, any of us know here of Northern Ireland, but around the world, this is what's on the TV screens of people draped in a flag, throwing stones or petrol bombs at police, and it's just a totally negative image. It does huge damage. It's very hard to try and explain it to people overseas when they say, "Mark, what's this all about?" You know, and trying to explain it to them.
Your philosophy on we want to finish this because I want to go on to. I'm very conscious of the time. It's 11:30. We're still all right in time. Your whole philosophy on leadership. What would it be?
Yeah, I'm probably a good delegator. I think that, for an old saying, man demands a master. People want strong leadership. They want someone to say yes or no. It maybe doesn't really do an awful lot of good. So I think decisive leadership. It's one of the benefits of being a private company, is that we can have our little successes in private and make our little mistakes in private. But we're able to act quickly, act decisively, make decisions quickly. I think that's very positive. And I think it's, my view would be that things don't happen. People make things happen. Things don't go wrong. People allow things to go wrong. So everything's down to the people you have around you. So it's picking the team, encouraging them, giving them their head, and then rewarding them appropriately for achieving what they should be achieving.
What drives you today? When did you stop getting interested in money?
Yeah, I've never been interested in money. Money's a commodity. But when you start a small business and you have no money, it's a great learning process, having to make do. Like I thought I was an engineer and a manufacturing man. And I turned out when you start out in your own small business, you have to be Mr. Everything. You have to be Mr. Salesman, Mr. Debt Collector, Mr. Buyer. But the big thing that you learn then is to appreciate the value of money. You can never say it doesn't matter. So I think it's respecting money and never wasting money. So money is purely a commodity.
Well, you certainly put it to good use in your philanthropic work yourself, and Carmel, who's with you, your wife. Like your work in Belfast, the money that you've given to Belfast, the very theatre probably wouldn't be there without your help in Naughton Gallery in Queens. Why is it important to you to give that money away, to help in that sense in the arts and culture?
Well, I think that, phrase is that every cripple has their own way of walking. So it's what rings your bell, and it's a bit of self-indulgence sometimes, Gerry, but I think up to a certain age, maybe 40 or maybe 50, nobody's going to give away money. There's more important things to do with it. But then you come to a stage when you have what you need to survive and to look after your family and look after your children. And then for what are you going to do with the excess funds? So for several years, Carmen and I have decided that we would support causes that we believe in. The two things that really attract us is the arts. We think, as you said, the lyric and the art gallery here. We think every society, and when the peace process came particularly, needs the arts. And even the quality of life of people to have facilities, but not just facilities, first-class facilities. and education. We are very supportive on education.
Talking about, what's your connection with Notre Dame in America? How did you get involved with the university there in the first place?
I'm a trustee of Notre Dame University.
How did that happen? How did that come about?
They came here 16 years ago to play a football match against the Navy in Crow Park, and they had a lunch in Dublin. And we were invited to the lunch. And at the lunch, it was for the officers of the university and some of the senior trustees. And I asked over lunch, well, why did it take you guys so long to come to Ireland? You are the fighting Irish. I said, if you were Jews, you would have been in Israel and Jerusalem like long before now. And Kathleen Andrews began to cry. But Kathleen Andrews always begins to cry when she's in Ireland. She comes with a bag of hankies. She's a big publisher in Chicago, as hard as nails. But, and one guy said to me, I can answer that for you. He said, look, our parents were so busy surviving and educating their children, they neither had the time to go back or could afford to go back. We're the first generation of Irish, this Irish-American thing, to be born in affluent, to have succeeded, and we not only want to go back, we can afford to go back. But I said the scary thing is that our children, who are one generation on, they're the first generation of Irish to be born affluent, and they not only can afford to go back, they want to go back, but they also want to learn and speak the language of their forebears, ancestors. And we decided at that meeting to set up a faculty in Dublin, and they asked me to get involved in it, and I have been involved in it. But I'm involved in it because, again, this thing, I only believe in being a winner. Being first class, second, is no good to anybody. So we strive for excellence in everything we do. Notre Dame is one of the top 10% of American universities. They don't want to do everything. They want to concentrate. They don't have any medical school, so they focus on the things that they can do, and they want to be number one in the world. Sorry, number one in America. To them, it's the same thing.
So last year, you managed to bring over the football team against the Navy. 35. How many Americans came over?
35,000.
35,000 came over. What kind of spin-off was that for Ireland?
Well, I mean, this is a college football game. It surprised us, but I mean, there's this great affinity, as I described back, and they all came for at least 1 week, some came for 2 weeks. Busiest day at Dublin Airport ever. Brian Thomas has had their biggest any weekend ever. But they came north, south, east and west. They travelled wherever the connections were. They played golf everywhere, they spent money everywhere. These are 35,000 affluent people. And the thing was that we could have bought 20,000 more if we had the tickets. It was the biggest refusal they ever had to do on request for tickets in the history of the university. There's a lesson there for us.
Behind the scenes, you were meeting some influential people for it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great group. I mean, it's a who's who of America, this university. And we had a whole spin-off series of conferences and meetings and get-togethers and introductions. And it still will spin off from it.
The Gathering is happening this year, and it was a great taster for the Gathering this year. Are you backing it?
Yeah, here and there. You find it very hard to get away.
Is it a good idea? Is it worth the day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that's positive is worth doing. And go back to philosophy, it's people make things happen. So if you put the people together, and whether it's 100,000 or 50,000 or 20,000 or 10,000 people they got who wouldn't have come here, that's positive.
Okay, the future of North and South together. Is it progressing in the way you would like to see it progressing? Is there anything that has yet to be done that should be done?
Gerry, I think there's been huge strides made, and it's like young people now, which didn't exist in my day. Young people now live together, and they don't have to get married. And I think that's as Naughton, South, and both communities here. The most important thing we do is learn to live together. And if ever we decide sometime in 100 years from now to get married, that's fine. You know, but it's not a prerequisite when two people decide they want to live together if we like each other.
That's nicely put. Your advice to young entrepreneurs, young people starting out in a business?
Well, look, it's the best gig in town if you start your own business, but it's not for everybody. Anything that's worth having in life, you have to pay a price for it. Like in starting a business, we worked every hour that God made. We left when it was dark, we came in when it was dark, and we worked weekends. And we used to say, like when we were working on a Sunday, our competitors were on the golf course or on sailing, so we're going to win. But you know, you pay a price for everything in life, and you've got to be prepared to pay the price. And there's no alternative to hard work. So if you're going to do it, it's a lot of hard work.
Before I open it up to the audience, tell me about this luxury cruise liner called the World.
Yeah, it's something we don't talk about. There is.
Do you not talk about this?
We can talk about
Good,
it.
because I'm going to make you
Just
talk about
for a
it.
second.
I was down at the house before Christmas and he showed me a model of it all, so it's coming to Belfast.
It's coming to Belfast for the first time. They're getting a bit jittery because of the TV images they're seeing. You know. This is not a cruise line as such. It's the only cruise ship which is owned by the people. And Cameron and I are lucky enough to have a little apartment on it. And it spends its time sailing around the world. Very cosmopolitan people from every country, America, Canada, all the European countries. Very interesting community of people. And it came to Ireland 3 years ago, to Dublin and Cork. And when they left Cork, the unanimous feeling was, it's not a cribbing, we didn't spend long enough in Ireland, we didn't see anything except this bit here. What about the rest of the country? And how soon can we go back? So they're coming back in July. They're coming for 2 weeks. They're going to go to Belfast for 4 days. And they're all very excited about Belfast. You know, and, huge interest. And I think Belfast is actually the big attraction for them. So they're going to Belfast, then Derry for 2 days, and then Galway for 2 days, and then coming around to Dublin for 4 days or 5 days, whatever it is. And
Will you be in residence?
we will.
And it's very kind of you to invite
Everybody in the audience.
in July. Martin, we've rambled through a lot of things. Would you please thank Martin for that? We've rambled and strolled through it for the past 40 minutes, but I know there may be more detailed questions that some of you would like to ask when we start here. Yes.
Dr. Naughton, can I take you back to the early days? Right at the end, you touched on entrepreneurship and hard work and so on and so forth. And a lot of entrepreneurs work very hard, but at one point you were an employee, you were an engineer, an operational engineer, and then I don't know, did you hear this stuff? Did you heard it? Yeah. So in the early days you described your life as an engineer in operations, and then it seems to me almost with one bound you were a businessman. And I take the point about the hard work, but where did the business acumen come from? You didn't come from a family that was in business. I presume you didn't have access to the Ulster Business School, etc., etc. Was it all trial and error, or could you say something about where the business acumen came from?
I mean, the first time I saw myself described as an entrepreneur, I didn't know what the word meant. I had to go and look it up. And it's a matter of like a child creeping, walking. And one thing I discovered way back is that this word businessman, I'm not too sure exactly what it means. I mean, failure was not an option. So whatever it took, you had to do it. And I think if you're honest with yourself, you know your own strengths and weaknesses. I was not a financial man. Therefore, I had to hire the best financial brains that I could to get them around me. And I think you have to recognize your own strengths and weaknesses and where you need help and where you need support. And then you learn. You know, we've done about, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 acquisitions, big and small. And in every one you learn something. So you get experience. And I think we're all, is it magpies or jackdaws, but we all steal a little bit from everybody you meet. So when you're at a meeting in company and there's someone who you're impressed with, you tend to steal a little bit from them. We steal dress sense, you like somebody's tie, you know, get something like it, you know. So everything is developing, growing. I've had this attitude of wanting to be number one, wanting to be a leader. And you have to strive for that. If you decide you're going to be number two, you will be number two. Or you want to be an also ran, you will be. Like I wanted to be, when I started, the brand leader. I wanted to be number one. We had in UK, in electric heating, about 15 competitors. And one by one, we took them all out. You know. We would be the dominant force now. I'd say we've got about 95% of the heating business in the UK now. And that's a strength and a weakness.
Anybody else? Yes.
In 1973, you were faced with buying Glen Diplex. Could you put in proportion the value of the Glen part and the Diplex part to give some proportion as to what size of mountain you were tackling?
Yeah, Diplex was 8 times our size. We were 4 years old. They were 1930. They were 40 years old. It was the first time I ever wrote a cheque for over £1 million, and you had to count the knots very carefully.
Thank you.
It was a big one, and that's before leverage buyouts existed. You know, when there was no such thing as leveraging, putting up £100 and borrowing £1,000. It was a big gamble, and if it had gone wrong, we were wiped out, and everything we created was gone. So it was the only time ever when all the chips went on the table. After that, we would say to ourselves that we are a conservative company. So for many years now, if we are making an acquisition, the question we ask is, if this goes wrong and we lose everything, if this goes totally wrong, what damage will it inflict on the group? Now, for several years, if it inflicted any damage, we wouldn't do it. You know? So it's risk limitation. We are entrepreneurs, we say, but we're actually quite conservative people now. We also stick to our own business. So business we acquire are in our businesses we know, we feel comfortable with. So we don't go off and go into furniture or fashion or anything else. We stick to our last.
You're in fashion though, are you not?
Yeah, the appliance business has become, particularly in small appliances, it's a fashion business now. And that people change perfectly good appliances because colour has changed, because features have changed, because there's something you have to have. So you put away a perfectly good toaster or coffee maker into the press, and you put your new one out on the kitchen top.
It's a great feeling.
Terrific.
Yes.
The market opportunity for you seemed to arose because the established brands seemed to get rather fat and lazy. So I'm interested to know how you, as an organisation, avoid falling into the same trap. I don't mean words like culture and leadership, I mean on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. I'm also intrigued to know, have you had any spin-offs the way you spun out of GDC, so to speak? Has anything like that happened to you, setting up your own competition?
Thank God, no. Look, I would say that my old friend Don Keogh, one of his phrases that I've learned is stay nervous and always be nervous. And we are driven by new products. Our lifeblood is new products. And as Falcon reminded me of a phrase that our American cousins use, if you don't innovate, you will evaporate. So our commitment to new products is total. I mean, you mentioned the Quantum. That's the biggest single spend that we've ever made on one product in our history. Several millions have gone into this product. And that's backing your judgment. I chair a new product meeting once a month. And that's with our designers, our developers, engineers, our marketeers, and our production people. And we are striving for new brands, new patents, products that we can patent, features that we can patent. And that drives the business. So our commitment to new products is total. It's our number one priority. It's also the happiest day of my whole month is being back to that kind of stuff. Yes.
The story, the question comes up all the time about entrepreneurs and very successful entrepreneurs is nature and nurture. And you talked about your beginnings and having that experience coming into it and growing into it. But now that you've obviously had a wide, long experience in the area, and you know a lot of other entrepreneurs who are as successful and almost as successful, are there any particular characteristics that you see in an entrepreneur that set you guys aside from the rest of us? Is it stamina? Is it risk-taking? Is it whatever? Are there some things that you feel are essential to successful entrepreneurship?
Yeah, Liam, it's a difficult one. You know, I don't sit around psychoanalyzing myself. In fact, the old phrase, we try and spend more time looking at the windscreen than we do at the rear view mirror. So we're looking at the future rather than to it. I suppose at the end of the day, it has to be risk-taking. And I don't know this instinct, gut feeling we have. I remember on one occasion there was a company called Metal Spinners down in Newtown, Mount Kennedy, that were producing kettles. And I sent two of my guys down to look at it. I said, look, they're making kettles, we are making kettles, there's bound to be synergy. And they came back and said, there's nothing in it. I said, there has to be. If it's only buying some material, it's in the receivership. He said, no, there's nothing in it, it's a lot of rubbish. So I went down myself, and all I saw was opportunity. So you see it with different eyes, and exactly how you know. And I'm sure, like, I think to encourage it, to the disciplines that you have to have. So I think it's a bit of nurture. It's also a fair bit of teaching and coaching and studying what we do right and what we do wrong. Let me tell you one more story before you ask that. If I just remember there, I was on the board of IDB, and my son Neil had just left university, and I said, Neil, what do you plan to do with yourself? He said, Dad, I was thinking about the IDB. I said, Neil, the IDB, do you mean the IDA? He said, no, the IDB. I said, you do surprise me. He said, listen, Dad, IDB, into Dad's business.
Just on that before you got the question, the family now is totally involved in the company, am I right?
I have 3 children. My daughter has 5 children to look after. So she's a lot on. My 2 boys are both in the business. One is deputy chairman and the other is deputy chief executive.
So IDA and IDB.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
Dr. Naughton, about 5 years ago, just at the start of the current recession that we're in, you've come through some recessions, a very eminent economist at an event I was at, he said that by 2020, anything in the world that needed manufactured in mass numbers would be manufactured in Asia. He said that there'd be no manufacturing of large scale in anywhere in the world. Now we're seeing some small trends in Ireland recently. I mean, the FG Wilson are possibly moving, or Caterpillar are moving out. Do you see manufacturing having something to fear over the next few years?
Yeah, I think, you know, evolution is going to be there. There will be change. Do I see our manufacturing moving offshore? by 2020? No, I don't. Providing we can keep driving new products. I mean, give me another one. We made vacuum cleaners in what was the old East Germany. Now, nobody in Europe makes vacuum cleaners. And we sell vacuum. I would have said that's a business that won't survive. We probably got no more investment in there. And yet last year we invested in a whole new suite of tools for vacuum cleaners. And they sell in Germany, say to Aldi. And Aldi will buy about 400,000 a year in 4 lots of 100,000. And the brand there is made in Germany. And they will put out flyers. Now a vacuum cleaner can be €24.95. And they will put out German-made vacuum cleaner, €50. And they fly off the shelf like that. And there's confidence in the brand. So they think that, and it's not, in Germany, it's not nationalism. It's they believe this is going to be a good one. It's made in Germany. I can rely on this. This is going to last me a lifetime. If I buy made in China, I'm not wrong. Because Chinese quality is very good. So they fly off the shelves. And you know, you have to give the consumer what the consumer wants.
What vacuum cleaner have you got in your house?
What vacuum cleaner?
You wouldn't know, would you? You wouldn't know.
I can tell you, it won't be a competitor.
Anyway, yeah, way at the back. Oh, our first lady of the morning.
Dr. Naughton, I was just wondering, you have an insight into international production. You have these production companies across various countries. How does your Irish production plant measure up to other competitors in terms of, you know, productivity per head, competitiveness, and their innovation levels?
Okay. When we started in Gerry, we got a young labour force. First time any of them had a job. And we were advised that Gerry might be a good place to manufacture it. There's no great tradition of it or anything else. That's the best labour force we've ever had anywhere. This was a tremendous labour force. They didn't walk, they ran. And I was proud to bring people in just to see the production, to see the factory, to see the pace. You could feel it when you walked through the door. Now, we have to be competitive wherever we are. And like in business, sentimentality really, at the end of the day, can't come into it. If you make a decision based on sentiment, it's going to be a wrong decision. So we have to make sure that all of our production units everywhere are competitive. We can benchmark one against the other. And we're well able to compete here.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah,
I've got
sure.
the mic here. In terms of your innovation, because I know you were saying that is really key, that along with the brands. We have a problem in Northern Ireland trying to get our innovation levels up. And roughly, what proportion of turnover would you dedicate to R&D in your companies?
Like we would have, first of all, we don't have central functions. The companies run their own affairs. We only have 2 central functions. One is finance. We've got a central bank that gives money to the companies when they need it. Don't have to go and see a bank manager, ever. And more importantly, we take money away from them when they don't need it. The other function we have is we have central design. We have a design studio in London with about 40 very bright young designers, including graphic designers. And we would have about 500 development engineers around the world who work with the designers in constant new product development.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a curious question. If you now, as Dr. Naughton, were to get a phone call from 40 years previous when Martin Naughton was trying to raise the funds in the hotel that night, objectively speaking, would you give him the money?
I went to Jordanstown to, there was a lecturer there who had been very helpful to me who had been working for government. And he brought along 3 people who they had invested in. One who they invested in and had failed. One they had invested in that was alive but struggling. And one they had invested in who had succeeded. And then the 3 people made a presentation to this group of students, and they were asked to vote which of them had succeeded, which of them had failed, and I got the thumbs down. So, you know, I think that it's difficult for people investing in an unknown entity. You know, this is a risk you take, but talk about entrepreneurship, it's all about risks. And like, we knew the business we were going into. We knew the people we were selling to. We knew the industry. But it still took an act of faith for the Department of Commerce and for the banks to actually invest in us. But we had to put in like our own money also. So it wasn't a free ride. If it had gone wrong, we would have hurt badly. You know.
We'll take 1 or 2 more. We'll take one last one. Yes, that last one.
Thank you very much for the insight, Dr. Naughton. You made reference to keeping your companies agile and as in a fleet of ships rather than a super tanker. Have you set a size on each company that you are developing?
No. There's a certain size of company that we like. I've heard people saying that, you know, a 10 million company is too small for them. I think it's a very good small company. It gives me as much pleasure as a very good large company. But it's like riding the bicycle. You have to keep pedaling. You have to keep going forward. If you decide to stand still, you're going to fall off and break your backside. So, you know, there has to be always in all of us. How do I grow my business? How do I increase it? If you start being complacent and saying I'm happy with what I have, that's going to get you nowhere. I think, though, looking around the thing, there's 2 things compared to when I started. If you wanted to have a meeting like this 40 years ago, you could have had it in the telephone box. The way the country is developed, first of all, there wouldn't have been any ladies here. And it's just very encouraging to see how many ladies there are in the audience here today.
One last question on that from a lady.
It's more a comment than a question. As somebody that was left school in Gerry in 1979 with no formal qualifications. When we left school, you had a choice. It was Glen Electrics, the training centre if you were a boy and wanted to carry on the trade, or Starks' sewing factory. Now I went to Starks', but I have to say I have friends who I'm still friendly with now, who left school, same year as me, went to Glen Electrics in Gerry and are still there. And I know you say there's no room for sentimentality in business, but Gerry has a lot to thank you for. And
I think that's just the note to the end. That's any no word of retiring?
I am very privileged in that I work because I want to work, not because I have to work. I could have stopped working 25 years ago and sat under a coconut tree somewhere. So that's a privilege for any of us that work because we want to work. I said that about 2 years ago that I'm taking a back seat, and I wrote a letter to everybody saying I'm now taking a back seat. And my wife Carmel overheard our youngest son. Somebody said, I believe your dad's taking a back seat. He said he's taken a back seat, but he has the steering wheel with him.
Please thank Dr. Martin Naughton. course, just to wind things up, would you please welcome Fergal McCormick, just to wind things up this morning. Thank you very much.
Good Vice-Chancellor and Provost of the Belfast campus, Professor Alistair Adair, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on your behalf and on behalf of Team FPM, I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to Dr. Martin Naughton for his truly inspirational comments this morning. The word great may be overused, but in the case of Dr. Martin Naughton, we are all conscious that we are in the presence of one of the greatest Irish business entrepreneurs ever, and no doubt ever in the context of the future as well. And you know, I looked around the audience at one stage, and it was amazing to see how much everyone was fascinated. The faces were fixated, and certainly they talk about masterclasses, Mary, but I think those privileged to be here today will never forget this masterclass. So thank you very much, Martin. Together with his wife, Carmel, as a couple, they have made an immense contribution to Irish life, at home and abroad, in the fields of business, education, the arts, and active citizenship. It was my privilege over 6 years to serve with Martin for 6 years under his chairmanship on the Notre Dame Ireland board. And you know, I've often thought of this, and I've always concluded that Martin's combination of international business acumen, his vision, his negotiation skills, his enormous credibility among the business community and the Irish diaspora, and his down-to-earth charm rendered him the obvious candidate to be the pioneering first chairman of Notre Dame Ireland post the Belfast Agreement. And boy, did he give it credibility. And there are certain attributes one can always attribute to Martin Naughton, such as his integrity and his desire to make a positive difference, and his passion for inspiring others. To create a better island and a world, certainly his passion, if you're fortunate enough to be in his presence, is infectious. His attention to detail and his emphasis on brands and the need to design the future were always evident. I don't think I can remember ever sitting through a meeting that somehow during the course of that meeting 2 or 3 common trends, no matter what the subject matter, didn't come up. One was design. Even a boring accountancy firm, you didn't design, you failed. And the second was innovate or evaporate. I don't think I ever went through a meeting, those the name analysis here, I don't think I ever went through a meeting that somehow those 2 terminologies didn't come up in some term. And when I contacted Martin last August to ask him, last August, this is a man that's around the world, to be guest speaker at the FPM 2013 leadership talk, he immediately responded that he'd be glad to do so. And he certainly has honoured that commitment by coming here today. I'm also very conscious how honoured we are. I don't think too many would have seen an interview like this before. And we can say we heard an open chat from Martin Naughton for an hour. I think we're privileged. Very few have ever heard it, if ever, before. And I am confident that Martin's entrepreneurial experience, his vision and views, which he shared with us today, will provide a stimulus for further innovation and design, and ultimately, hopefully, lead to significant economic and social capital growth from this island. It takes 2 to chat, and I'm sure you will agree that Gerry Kelly once again, in his own quiet, professional way, gave a par excellence performance in terms of nurturing the discussion. All Gerry Kelly's experience of regularly topping the viewing ratings in Northern Ireland with the Kelly Show with UTV for 17 consecutive years, he topped the ratings here in the North, was very evident. And central to that enormous achievement in broadcasting was the man himself, Gerry Kelly. If we could say brand Gerry Kelly. And this morning, his class and attention to detail in terms of research and delivery. I'm sure you all caught those little interventions in terms of time and etc. that were coming through. They were coming through because of painstaking research. So once again, Gerry, sincere thanks. Listening and observing Dr. Martin Naughton, I have always been very conscious of the importance of brands. And just as BMW believe that their brand is associated with joy, we at FPM Chartered Accountants believe that our brand is associated with a desire to serve and care, to deliver service excellence. FPM believe that our motivation in life and indeed in business as trusted business advisors should be to help others to win and achieve their dream and quality of life aspirations. From the outset, we sought to attract, develop and reward the very best talent to ensure our business and our clients' future success. Our value proposition is therefore to deliver results and positive change through design, creativity and innovation in terms of impact solutions for existing and potential new clients. Going forward, FPM would like to continue as an independent accounting and business consultancy practice with international links to its membership of Prime Global, the third largest association of independent accounting firms in the world, with a worldwide turnover of $2.2 billion US, 350 member firms and 17,000 employees in 90 countries around the world. Because that will allow us to facilitate for our clients, and they're requiring much more, global reach, technical depth and personal connections worldwide. Indeed, we are very honoured to be hosting for the first time ever in Northern Ireland the Prime Global UK and Ireland Managing Partners Conference on the 4th and 5th of March this year. We were delighted and indeed honoured to host this event this morning in association with our fellow Management Leadership Network champion organisation, the Ulster Business School at the University of Ulster, as part of the Management Leadership Network for Management Month. The Ulster Business School here at the University of Ulster has established itself as the province's premier business school, and it is rapidly gaining prestige, international recognition and credibility under the leadership of its charismatic Dean and leader, Professor Mary McHugh. It was a great privilege to work closely with Professor McHugh in the organisation of today's event, and I would like to publicly thank her for her guidance and support, and through her the Provost of the Belfast campus here and the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University, an old friend of my own, Professor Alistair Adair. We are very aware of Dr. Martin Naughton's close association with the Notre Dame University in the United States over the years. And from an Ulster Business School perspective, it is very encouraging that the school has recently been admitted as a member of another great USA Centre of Learning, the Harvard Business School's Microeconomics of Competitive Network. As a result, the Ulster Business School can now embed the Harvard curriculum into its management, education and development programs. Similarly, the Management Leadership Network and our fellow champion organisations, many represented here today under the direction of Bill Manson, assisted by Podium, has put together a tremendous programme of events for its February Management Month initiative. And I would urge you all, as the strapline says, for this month, to make the most of it. You will appreciate that events like this morning just don't happen. And I'd like to express our sincere appreciation, as I already said, to the University of Ulster, and in particular to Professor Mary McHugh and her team. In respect of the food and hospitality, earlier on this morning, we thank Lucia Campbell and our restaurant manager Martin Campbell and the student team at the Academy restaurant. In terms of administration, we thank Mary Doyle and the facilities management team. In terms of the ICT and audio, and thank you, it has worked, we thank Ian and Paul. And we'd also like to acknowledge the support of Jane Wells from JPR. We'd like to thank Simon Mooney and Mooney Media for their assistance in terms of the design and printing and artwork for today's event, and hopefully you will see there was creativity. We'd also like to thank our own video team of Darren McCoy and Paul Rooney, and not forgetting our photographer Darren Mooney. I think you'll all agree we were very fortunate to be entertained by beautiful music at the start, and we say sincere thanks to the Arco String Quartet. I am conscious that as I get up each morning, how fortunate and indeed honoured I am to lead a positive Team FPM. And once again, I'd like to thank all my colleagues for their tremendous support in the organisation of this annual FPM Leadership Talk. In terms of thanks, finally I would like to thank you, for coming along in such great numbers and ensuring a full house within days. We could have filled this theatre 3 times over of the invitation being issued. Before concluding, we have 2 presentations. I first of all would like to ask our Belfast partner, Teresa Campbell, if she would present Mrs. Carmel Naughton with some flowers. Teresa. Maybe Carmel, you'd be kind enough to join us. Carmel to join us here, because if you know Martin Naughton, you will know this has been a double act for many, many years. And we're particularly delighted that we got the Dublin artist Brendan Pearce to design a bespoke piece of art for a couple who are very much into art. And you will see here that basically what he's done is he's created a caricature of Martin. And I have to get my glasses now, but I can tell you some of the comments and quotes here are quite interesting. Martin's reading a newspaper and it says, Naughton brings 35,000 fans of American football to Ireland and Notre Dame. This mic didn't intend itself for Fergie's strong voice. And finally, on the other side it says, Glen Diplex worldwide turnover exceeds 1.5 billion and employment levels reach over 10,000. You'll see it has a Roberts radio on the table. It also has, believe it or not, the original Glen Diplex here in the room. It has Carmel Naughton beside the National Gallery in Dublin, which she former chairperson of. It has the Lyric Theatre, of which Martin and Carmel were so generous to. And believe it or not, then there's 2 signs in the back. One is the Glen Diplex brand that says innovate or evaporate. And then it has another poster, building brands, Murphy Richards, Diplex and Belling. On your behalf, we'd like to present Martin and Carmel. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.